Today we'll continue our lesson on a new chapter on Hibah. Okay, basically in this chapter we're going to learn about the concept of Hibah and the execution of Hibah. Basically, Hibah is a very straightforward and a simple chapter, and Hibah conceptually is an alternative to Wasiyah, and it is something that someone can resort to if he has the intention of giving more to the wife, to the children, or to the parents. So that is considered as Hibah or gift or intervivor's gift. So somehow, perhaps we have this intention of giving more to our parents, to our children, to our wife, to anyone, basically anyone, other than the prescribed portion in Fara'id. So you can choose, other people they use wasiya, but of course, as we've learned before, wasiya have its restrictions, but you can also use hibah, because basically hibah is a more flexible option for someone who wants to give more to someone, more portion other than the prescribed portion in Fara'id, or someone who are, they are not entitled to the Fara'id, or perhaps want to give more other than the restricted quantum in Wasiyah. So, Hiba is another alternative. And basically, like I said just now, Hiba is a very flexible option in terms that it has no quantum. It has no quantum or restriction on the recipient, and anybody can give anything, the whole lot of it, some of it, via hibah to anybody he wishes. So basically, that is how flexible hibah is. But what's the difference between hibah and wasiyah? And the difference is in the period when both takes effect. And like we know previously, wasiyah only takes effect upon the death of the person who makes the wasiyah. But in hibah, it takes effects immediately. It takes effects immediately once that the donor and say I want to give this house to my eldest daughter. It takes effect almost immediately, and the transfer of the ownership and control to the property is transferred immediately to the donee, the recipient, during the donor's lifetime. So, like I said, this is the main difference between hibah and wasiyah, other than the quantum and the recipient. So, if someone say that he wants to give something to someone but wants to delay its delivery until his death, then we know that it's not wasiyah. Technically, if you say you want to give something to someone after your death, that is wasiyah. And because we know hibah, it takes effects immediately. If you say you want to delay the delivery until your death, then that is considered as wasiyah, and all the rules and regulation of wasiyah will be applicable to that, to your intention. So hibah, we can say, is a gift or giving something to someone without any consideration or price in return. What do we mean without any price in return, without any consideration? Meaning it's a benevolent gift. We are not asking something in return. It's a sincere gift. Seikhlas hati. In its technical meaning, hibah is a contract to voluntarily transfer of property from one person to another during their lifetime. So that is the technical meaning of hibah. Okay. So now let's look into the dalil of hibah. So is it permissible in Islam? Do we have any verses in the Quran that supports hibah? Of course, and in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 177, it says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون. Righteousness is not that you turn your faces toward the east or the west, but true righteousness is in one who believes in Allah, the last day, the angels, the books, and the prophets, and gives wealth in spite of love for it to relatives, orphans, the needy, the traveler, those who ask for help and for freeing slaves, and who establishes prayer and gives zakah. Those who fulfill their promise when they promise, and those who are patient in poverty and hardship and during battle. Those are the ones who have been true, and it is those who are the righteous. So this verse is talking about what is the true definition of being a righteous person, and what is righteousness. So, or what is bir and bir. So Allah says clearly that uh, being true, being a righteous person, is not that you are turning your faces to the east and to the west, but a righteous person is someone who believes in Allah, in the day of the hereafter, in the angels, in the holy scriptures, in the prophets, and وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة. And also those who gives wealth in spite of love for it, to relatives, to orphans, to the needy, to the travelers, to those who are asking for help, sa'ilin, and for freeing slaves, and wafir riqab, and they also establishes prayer and give zakah. And these people, they are also, when they promise, they will fulfill their promise, and they are always impatient in times of poverty and hardship, and even in battles. And these are the true people, and these are the true righteous person. So it says here, it clearly says here in this verse, that a true righteous person does not only, believes in all of the articles of Islam and Rukun Iman, but they also gives their property out of love to their relatives, to the orphans, to those in need, uh, to the poor, to those who are enslaved, anyone. So, meaning giving our property to someone out of love without any asking anything in return. This is what we call as hibah, or giving something as a gift to someone, and it is truly encouraged in Islam, and you are considered as someone who are a righteous person. So this is a dalil of hibah in the Quran. So what are the essentials of hibah, or we can say the arkan or the rukun, and its conditions? First of all, there's 4 essentials of hibah, and we have the donor, the person who makes hibah, the donee, the recipient, the subject matter, what is it that you want to give as a hibah, and the offer and acceptance, ijab and qabul. First of all, let's look into the donor. And of course, the donor, he must have attained the age of majority, meaning he has attained bulugh or baligh, and his baligh, and of sound mind, meaning akil, so as to be able to have intention and the free will to create hibah. Because when you have attained the age of majority, you are baligh and you are also akil, then we are confirmed and assured that what you are saying is because you truly know what you are doing, and it is not because you are forced somehow by someone else, or because you are not aware of what you are doing, and because of you've attained this age of majority and you are akil. So we are really sure and confirm of your ability to understand what you are doing, meaning to give your property to someone else. So it's out of your true intention and free will. And the donor, he must also not the subject to interdiction, meaning you are not object from handling or owning or controlling your property. Tidak dilarang lah for by anyone, meaning by law, by the government, by the bank, or anyone. There's no interdiction to you. Tidak dilarang lah. Perhaps you are not bankrupt, and you are not there's no encumbrances lah to the property and to you yourself. Kamu tidak dilarang untuk menguruskan harta kamu. And you are the true owner of the property that you want to give out as hibah. Okay, that's the donor. Let's look into the donee. The donee or the recipient, he must have the legal capacity to own property. To own property. Like, uh, those people who are babies, somehow, some people, they don't have the legal capacity to own property. And he must also have attained the age of majority, be of sound mind, and survive the donor. Survive the donor. Meaning, if he passed away earlier than the donor, how can he receive the gift? And again, he must be baligh and aqil. However, a minor can be a donor. And a minor, those people who have not yet attained the age of majority, those people who are mumayyiz or lower than mumayyiz, his or her wali or guardian can accept the hibah on behalf of the donee and take possession of the property on behalf of the minor donee. Okay, so now let's look into the subject matter. The subject matter or the property which is given as hibah, it must be in existence and belongs to the donor. Must be in existence and belongs to the donor. There should not be any encumbrances or any right of others in the property. Otherwise, the hibah is not valid. Meaning, it's your true property and bukan hak orang lain. Perhaps something, there's encumbrances. Maksudnya ada halangan-halangan terhadap property tersebut. Perhaps, it's still under the bank. You haven't settled your debts with the banks, so it has encumbrances. So it belongs to the bank or it belongs to someone else. You haven't settled the payment or anything else. So the subject matter, the property must be in existence. It must exist and it must belongs to you, and there's no encumbrances. Tiada halangan. Meaning, it's owned by someone else, the bank or the shop or anyone else, the government. You haven't settled your due or anything else, right? So it must be free, it must be 100% yours. And a hibah property must also be identified with sufficient clarity. You must identify the property that you want to give out as hibah clearly. You can't just say I'm gonna give my property, my land to my sister. And so which land? Which land are you talking about? Because we have cases when someone gives, hibah without sufficient clarity. It cannot be executed. It cannot be executed because there's not enough information for us to identify which property are you talking. Especially if you are talking like you have shares, you have lots of land. So which lands are you talking about? Which land are you talking about? Which shares are you talking about? We have, like I say, here in Malaysia, we have cases in which hibah cannot be executed because lack of clarity. So make sure, if you are the donor, make sure if you want to give something as hibah to someone, identify it clearly. So that it's easier for us to execute it. And lastly, we have the offer and acceptance. And the offer can be made orally or by gestures, but it is encouraged to put it in writing in the presence of two male just witnesses, just like a wasiyah. In case, of course, and this is not, this is not compulsory, but of course, we need these witnesses in case dispute arises in the future. Of course, like in Islam, we want to, as much as possible, try to avoid all of these hiccups and problems in the future. It can be made, the offer can be made orally or by gestures or by in writing, but please make sure, try to avoid as much as possible future dispute. And so if you try to invite witnesses and get it to be stamped and find a lawyer, something like that, and just to make it official and less problematic in the future. And some of scholars also say that's about the offer. How about the acceptance? And we need also to establish al-qabad. Qabad means taking possession of the subject matter of the hibah. And this can be indicated by various means. We've discussed earlier, the acceptance of the execution of hibah, it takes effects immediately. Right? So when I say I want to give you my car, so if I have immediately, it takes effect immediately on that on that note. Right? Once I've uttered it and I uttered the words. So and immediately if I take possession, qabat, of the car, and that is also a means of accepting and the hibah, uh, meaning taking possession. And taking possession of the hibah, and it can be indicated by various means depending on the nature of the subject matter, such as by taking care of the property. And uh, so indirectly, if you are taking care of the property, that is indicating, like, I'm taking possession of that property, meaning I'm accepting the offer of the property, or I'm paying the monthly payment, the rental, I'm cleaning it on a regular basis, meaning I'm taking qabat, I'm taking possession of that property as if it's mine. It means what? It means I've already accepted it, or I've made some renovation to it, to the estate, or I have the property transferred in Doni's name, and so on. These are all the elements that indicate the acceptance of the hibah. So perhaps some property that requires transfer of names, grant dan sebagainya, it hasn't been done properly during the lifetime of the donor. But if we have these other means of possession, qabat, like I said just now, paying the monthly payment, you are doing the regular maintenance, you are cleaning it on a regular basis, you did some renovation, that is an indication of qabat, or possession, or accepting the gift. Okay, so we've done on the rukun, and so we just want to say that once hibah is completed, that is having satisfied all the requirements for a valid hibah, it cannot be revoked. It cannot be revoked except hibah from a father to a child, as long as the donor is still alive and the subject of matter of hibah is still in existence. This is an exception, and once a hibah is completed and it fulfills all the requirements, it cannot be revoked, except for a hibah from a father to a child. From a father to a child, that can be revoked anytime, right? As long as the donor is still alive, and the subject matter is still in existence. Somehow the father decides, I want to take back my car, so it's his right. And say earlier, like I gave you the example, the father said, I'm giving my eldest daughter this car, and 5 years down the line, the father decides, I'm taking back the car. So that can be done. This is the opinion of majority Muslim jurists, including the Shafi'is, who extend the right to revoke to the mother and grandparents as well. So majority of the jurists, Jumhur ulama, would agree to this, that it cannot be revoked except for hibah from a father to a child. And Mazhab Shafi'i, they extended it. Not only a gift from a father to a child, but a gift from a mother to a child, or from a grandparents to a child. This can be revoked anytime, as long as the donor is still alive and the subject matter is still in existence. If the donor decides, I want to take back my word, I want to take back my hibah, so it can be done. Okay, let's now look into restrictions of hibah. Is there any restrictions of hibah? So technically, there is no restriction for hibah, like in wasiyah. And hibah can be made in favor of anybody regardless of gender or relationship. Technically, anyone lah, anyone. So there's no such rule of 1/3 like we have in wasiyah. A donor can give away all of his property to a specific person or a group of people as he wishes. And he can do whatever he wants with his money, with his property. However, nevertheless, a hibah of a father to his children or a grandfather to his grandchildren is recommended to be equal in shares and to be equal. Like I say, it's your property. You can do whatever you like with your property. You can give it to anyone, um, the whole lot of it or some of it. It is totally up to you, but it is recommended in Islam a father or a grandfather to be just. And if he wants to give hibah to the children or to the grandchildren, it is recommended that they give it in equal shares. And in other words, a father or a grandfather is not encouraged to favor one child or grandchild over the other in giving hibah. Just because you like your first, your youngest child, and just because you favor your youngest child does not mean that you should give him more. This is hibah, and there's no limitation, there's no restriction. Yes, like I say, but it is recommended. And technically, in terms of fiqh, it is sah, halal. It is permissible, but in terms of ulama would say that you are considered as sinful in the eyes of Allah, and berdosa lah. And because we should be adil, we should be just. And the property which has been given as hibah is no longer part of the deceased estate, and it does not need to be divided according to faraid. And if you have, during my lifetime, I've given half of my property as hibah. So that property that I've given out as hibah is not part of my, my existing tarikah or my existing property estate, and so it does not have to be divided according to faraid. Okay, why it is recommended to be just and for a father or grandfather while giving hibah? Because there's a hadith and it's narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, and it's narrated by Nu'man ibn Bashir. It says that in this hadith, and my mother asked my father to present me a gift from his property, and he gave it to me after some hesitation. My mother said that she would not be satisfied unless the Prophet was made a witness to it. I, being a young boy, my father held me by the hand and took me to the Prophet. He said to the Prophet, his mother, bint Rawaha, requested me to give this boy a gift. The Prophet said, do you have other sons beside him? He said, yes. The Prophet said, do not make me a witness for injustice. Narrated Ashabi that the Prophet said, I will not become a witness for injustice. So it is somehow, in this story, and Nu'man ibn Bashir said his mother, when he was young, his mother, and he has siblings. Nu'man ibn Bashir said that he has siblings, he has other brothers or perhaps other sisters, but somehow the mother perhaps favored him, and so the mother asked the father to present him with a gift. It's kind of like forcing the father to give him a gift. So reluctantly, the father gave the boy Nu'man ibn Bashir some property, with hesitation. But the mother was not satisfied with it, and he requested that the Prophet ﷺ to become witness to it. Right. So the Prophet asked, do you have any other children? And he said yes. So the Prophet somehow said, the Prophet said, do not make me a witness for injustice. So again, like we've learned before, there's no restriction for hibah. You can give your whole property for anyone to your child during your lifetime, but that is considered as injustice. Why? Because you have other children. So indirectly we are saying that if you have children, and you should be just, you should divide your property equally to all children. So this is, a recommendation of hibah, recommendation to, to be just and to divide our property in hibah equally. If you want to divide it, or if you want to give them hibah during your lifetime. So basically, that's all on hibah. So again, like I said earlier, this is a very simple and straightforward topic, and but you know, it's very prevalent in the society nowadays. All of us, we like to do hibah, and but again, we need to follow the recommendation. Do not abuse hibah. And why? Because of this hadith. And somehow some people, they use hibah as a means, because I hate my eldest son. I hate my eldest son. So during my lifetime, I give all of my property to my youngest child, because I hate the fact that the youngest son, the eldest son will get a portion of it. So you technically, you can do it, and dari sudut fiqh is considered as halal and permissible, but it is an injustice and considered as to be sinful in the eyes of Islam. Okay, again, so there's a lot of, somehow, we can say abuse of hibah in the society. Okay, thank you very much.